product had to have a tag and pay 25 cents for that tag. So we had this chain of custody. It's a facade, Mr. Speaker. The good representative from Bangor just described how Metric is contributing to inversion and diversion out of state. Some of that Oklahoma and California cannabis is in Maine. They are at having guardrails and regulating the industry. In fact, there's a lawsuit right now. They're under litigation because a former vice president blew the whistle. He had concerns about what was going on, and they should address it, about the customer service, the clunkiness, and the diversion with the illicit grows. They fired him, Mr. Speaker, so yeah, he's a disgruntled employee. He's also a whistleblower. Most whistleblowers are disgruntled employees. So when you hear lobbyists in the hall talk about that, I just wanted some context. In the same company, I'll spare the body of laying out the timeline with the Office of Cannabis Policy and procurement, but all that to say, the Government Oversight Committee voted unanimously to vote into the appearance of a conflict of interest at OCP since the inception. It was a unanimous vote. The investigation's ongoing. All that to say is, this isn't partisan. This isn't about cannabis people just trying not to have any regulations and having a free-for-all. Middle-sized operators spends $30,000 a year in subscription fees and plant tax to this private company. Mr. Speaker, why are we forcing our industries to waste their time and treasure to subsidize a private software company? This is nuts, and it does nothing to make us any safer. Look at the proliferation of the illegal grows in our state, and it's a joke. They don't test, they don't track, they don't pay taxes. But people are going out of business that are trying to follow the rules, Mr. Speaker. And again, think about the environmental impact of all these plastic tags floating around that aren't recyclable, that are worthless. That disgruntled employee, he actually had a QR code software company that could stop all this plastic waste. They bought him, they bought the technology, then they shelved it. Classic playbook of big corporations buying up competitors so they don't have to compete. And the labor and the money. The labor, one of the smallest grows, he went back to medical because of the tax, because of this. He laid off 2 people. He didn't want to, but he had 2 people dedicated to using this Windows 95 Kafka-esque program that's cumbersome and clunky. It doesn't work. You can't go backwards. It freezes. There's no customer service. So, and while the good representative from Biddeford brings up contract renegotiations, we've had this contract for 6 years. There's a new RFP, 3 different vendors applied. We're in that process now. The date's closed. So that's why I amended the bill, because this is a parallel track. This is a parallel track to the RFP, to Metric. People want to use Metric, fine, go for it. All I'm asking is the office to come up with some way to track cannabis for recall purposes that doesn't involve people paying a private company 40 cents a tag and 25 cents a label. It's extortion. It's a grift. I don't know what else to say. And we have an opportunity to provide an alternative. We have an opportunity to help the people that are asking for help. And I hope folks follow this bipartisan report. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the representative from North Yarmouth, Representative Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, I'm new to this topic, to this committee. And I just want to say that I stand in support of the, in opposition to the to pass as amended, because, as the good representative from Biddeford said, we're in the process, Office of Cannabis Policy is in the process of putting out to bid this testing and tracking. If we say now goodbye to this, to Metric, which I agree has significant problems from what I know, and to the good representative from Bangor, our chair, has worked diligently to help the new people on the committee understand all of this, and we as a committee, have decided to work very hard the summer into the fall to better understand all of these issues. And I just don't think at this point in time that we put forward this bill fully understanding that the current system is not an adequate one and not a good one. But I think it's time to say not to pass this current motion, and we will put our nose to the grindstone to work real hard to make the cannabis policies and the cannabis regulations much better. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the representative from Bangor, Representative Fairclough.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, men and women of the House. I first want to commend our chair, the good representative from Bangor, in leading us to a pathway where we're going to have discussions over the off-season to address big issues in the cannabis market. I do hope right now that we will take into account the opposition to this legislation from the Maine Public Health Association, Maine Medical Association, Maine Osteopaths, Maine Psychiatrists, Maine Chapter of American Academy of Pediatrics. They are not expressing this opposition in a cavalier fashion. They have meaningful concerns, and it has to do with the unique nature that we have in this state with regard to our medical and our adult use market. It's unusual. It's unusual in the state of Maine compared to, frankly, all the other states that allow for legal cannabis, that the significant majority are through the medical cannabis market. And that context is important because the fact is there isn't the tracking and tracing in the medical market, which is the opposite of the way it is in most states of the Union. I would respectfully submit that regardless of your opinion of any particular vendor, we should have a vendor that tracks, traces, tests in place, and that we not lose that during any period of time, because in the medical market we've seen significant problems that people legitimately have concerns about. Meanwhile, if we look at having a period over the summer to analyze these issues, we can respect and understand these are very big issues. A New York Times investigation found that 18 million Americans themselves report symptoms of cannabis use disorder. Nearly 8% of Mainers purchase cannabis in the medical use market. There was a study from the New York Times that said that a pediatrician in Mid-Coast Maine sees teenagers so dependent on cannabis that they consume it practically all day, every day. I'm quoting, a remarkably scary amount because the concentrations now are so much higher than people might remember from earlier generations. They see teens, this is a Maine doctor, see teens and young adults whose chronic use makes them miss out on important developmental markers like getting a driver's license or holding a job, things they call failure to launch. I'm not speaking out of any hostility to cannabis as a product. I think alcohol is more dangerous, but the potency of cannabis has dramatically increased, and we have seen in the medical market, while there are many good providers and many good, decent people who participate in that, the occupant of the Blaine House referred to the wild, wild west of medical cannabis, and there's something to that.
The member will defer. The chair will inquire as the point of order from the representative from Poland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is about adult use cannabis.
The chair would ask the member to redirect his comments towards the legislation before us related to adult use cannabis tracking system. Member may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I respectfully submit that if we are to lose the thread, which I think would happen if this legislation were to pass, of having some appropriate tracking testing, because the two are joined hand in hand, they work together, then we would put in jeopardy the adult market, which frankly is better regulated than is the medical market. So I'm merely respectfully asking that we follow the lead of consensus in this committee and take the time over the summer for us to analyze the issues, have legitimate tracking and tracing in both markets, and work together for something that we all can unite behind, as I've pledged to and as other members of the committee have pledged to do. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the representative from Bangor, Representative Stupica.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I promise I will be very brief. I just wanted to give a little context that, yes, there was a consensus about what we will do over the summer. 4 years ago, when I was first elected, the issue of metric was brought to my attention, and at the time I was told there is nothing we can do because we are in a contract. There is nothing we can do because we are in a contract. Now is the time where the contract can be up. Next year we will be in a contract again. So one thing I've noticed in government is that it keeps delaying. So for this issue in particular, I felt that I needed to stand up and say that I do not support the system that we have been with. I don't support an overly burdensome, overly expensive system that produces a lot of plastic waste. And also I support the, as in the amendment, I support the rules to be created for a tracking system implemented and administered by the office in order to have recalls and to have tracking of the product. So it will not be untracked. It will be tracked completely. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the representative from Sanford, Representative Fredericks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And men and women of the House, I urge your support of LD 1672. This is a bipartisan bill. It was submitted because we have a big problem with our adult use tracking program, Metric. Metric is defective and expensive software program. It allows for illicit diversion of cannabis, as is proven by Oregon's metric tracked cannabis being sold in the black market on New York. Last year, Metric's executive vice president identified this grave concern, that Metric software is faulty, it's defective, it's contributing to the diversion of cannabis. Metric leadership marginalized those concerns and fight them. And you've heard he's launched litigation for this wrongful termination and is shining a national spotlight on the ability to manipulate Metric's data and alter the tracking information for financial gain. This bill allows for an alternate tracking system, similar to what Maine's Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association does for their clean cannabis program. A batch is numerically identified, harvest volume is recorded, and a recall process established should it be warranted. And you've heard, expected in January, the Veterans and Legal Affairs Committee is committed to research and deliberate on the testing and tracking standards founded in science, public health policy, and free from the influence of corruption. This resolve doesn't cancel Metric's contract. It would still allow the adult use operators to use Metric. But what it does is direct the Office of Cannabis Policy to come up with an alternative, one that doesn't force users into a faulty, costly, and cumbersome system. The same system that costs tens of thousands of dollars every year in non-recyclable plant tags, as the representative from Poland said, every operator must pay the ridiculous prices of 40 cents a plant tag plus 25 cents a product tag. This is on top of the monthly subscription fees. If our state is going to mandate this software, it shouldn't subsidize the software at the expense of these small business owners. Please support the common sense reforms of LD 1672 and protect Maine's homegrown adult use cannabis industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Pending questions, acceptance of Report A ought to pass as amended. Is the House ready for the question? Chair, open the vote. Sergeant Ramos, secure the chamber. First call of absentees. One member who's not yet voted. Two members who have not yet voted. One member who's not yet voted. Have all now voted? Chair close vote. Clerk told chair will announce the vote. 97 voting in the affirmative, 50 in the negative. The motion prevails. First reading of the bill.
Be enacted by the
bankruptcy
State
of
Municipal
Super Bill be sent to the
Section
House.
128B,
It's a vote. Clerk read Commitment A.
Committee Amendment A is
bankruptcy
found
of Super Government
H-583
Commitment A be
in
sent to
the
the
bill.
House. It's a vote. Chair recognizes Representative Poland and Representative Boyer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I present House Amendment A with the filing number of H617 to Committee Amendment A and move its adoption.
The Representative Poland and Representative Boyer presents House Amendment A with the filing number H-617 to Committee Amendment A moves to adoption. The clerk read House Amendment A. Chair understands Representative Poland and
House
Representative Boyer
Amendment A to
present House
Committee
Amendment A
Amendment A
be
is filing
sent to
number
the special House.
H-.
It's a vote. Is now the pleasure that House Amendment A be adopted. It's a vote. Is now the pleasure that Committee Amendment A is amended by House Amendment A thereto be adopted. It's a vote. Is there objection to suspension of the rule? Purpose of giving this bill second reading at this time. Hearing none, second reading of the bill by title only.
An act to allow participation in the adult use cannabis tracking system to be voluntary.
This bill having its specific readings of suspension of the rules is now the pleasure to be passed, being grossed as amended and sent for concurrence. It's a vote. It will be sent to the Senate. Is there objection to all matters being sent forthwith? Hearing none, or sent forthwith, except for matters being held. Ordered sent forthwith. Chair now lays before the House the 10th matter of unfinished business. Senate divided report. Report A, 11, ought to pass as amended by Committee Amendment A, S-160. Report B, ought to pass as amended by Committee Amendment B, S-161. Report C, ought not to pass. Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs on Bill and Act to clarify residency requirements for and provide funding to the Maine School of Science and Mathematics, SP 347 LD 787. And Senate Report A, ought to pass as amended, read and accepted, and bill passed to be engrossed as amended by Committee Amendment A, as amended by Senate Amendment A thereto, tabled June 3rd, 2025, to later today by Representative Murphy of Scarborough, pending acceptance of any report. Chair recognizes Representative from Scarborough, Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House accept the ought to pass as amended by Committee Amendment A report.
Representative from Scarborough, Representative Murphy moves the House to accept Report A, ought to pass as amended. Chair recognizes Representative from Poland, Representative Boyer. Is this the pleasure of the House? It's a vote. First reading of the bill.
Be enacted by the People State
Scarborough,
Municipal
Murphy,
Section
Mr. The bill
128A,
be discussed with the
Section
pleasure of the House.
820.
It's a vote. The clerk read Committee Amendment A.
Committee
Chair
Amendment A
stands
is filing
Representative
number
Scarborough, Mr. Murphy, Mr. The Committee Amendment A be discussed with the pleasure of the House. It's a vote. The clerk read Senate Amendment A to Committee Amendment A.
Senate
Chair
Amendment A
stands
to
that the
Committee
Representative from
Amendment A
Scarborough,
has
Mr. Murphy,
filing
Mr. The
number
Amendment of Senate Amendment A to Committee Amendment A be dispensed with the pleasure of the House. It's a vote. Is it now the pleasure of the House that Senate Amendment A to Committee Amendment A be adopted? Chair recognizes Representative from Scarborough, Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that we reject Senate Amendment A.
Chair understands Representative from Scarborough, Representative Murphy has requested a roll call. Sufficient number. Representative from Scarborough, Representative Murphy has requested a roll call. Sufficient number requesting roll call. Roll call is in order. Pending question is adoption of Senate Amendment A. Is the House ready for the question? Chair open the vote. Sergeant Arms, secure the chamber. First call of absentees.